Hi, I'm Tina Desiree Berg reporting for Status Coup News, and I'm excited to be doing the first episode of what is going to be a regular series here on Status Coup, Right-Wing Insanity Report. So the idea is I'm going to take you through weekly stories that matter, that are important, that are serious in regards to right-wing extremism, and then I'm going to also bring up some situations that are just, comical, because those are easy to find and they're fun to mock. So today for the first show, I wanted to highlight a very disturbing story about a local journalist who has felt personally and firsthand how dangerous Andy Ngo could be when he lies about what happens. For folks that don't know who Andy Ngo is, he is I'm going to use my scare quotes, and I rarely do this when I talk about other journalists, but I think in this particular situation it's warranted. Andy tends, and he's done it to me, Andy tends to take video, he edits it, and then he lies about what happened. And that, to me, is not journalism because you no longer have a commitment to veracity. Andy now has me blocked on Twitter, even though he has still, quote, tweeted and tagged me in tweets behind my back after blocking me, which I think is pretty messed up. But this particular situation involves him going after a local journalist, lying about a very violent situation that happened. And now, in response to that, we have many people putting up stickers attacking this particular person around Los Angeles and basically calling him, of course, Antifa activist because everybody's Antifa if you don't agree with them and whatnot. So let me introduce you to Vishal Singh. Welcome, Vishal. I'm happy to have you on the show today.
Hi there, Tina. Great to be here. Great. Glad you're having me.
Great. So I'm going to play a video in a second that shows multiple angles of the attack so people can really see what we're talking about. And we'll mention where Andy cut the video, and it'll be obvious what the problem is. But did you want to give us a little bit about your background, what you were doing that night, and what led to what happened?
Sure. So in this instance, I was this occurred last year. I was reporting on kind of a string of anti-masker, anti-vaxxer, COVID denialist rallies that were happening across Los Angeles County. Generally the same crew of folks that were pretty much rallying against any local business or institution that was implementing the basics of safety standards for COVID-19, whether it be masks or asking for vaccine, proof of vaccination, whatever it was. At this moment, they had been doing almost daily a rally against a bar and restaurant in West Hollywood known as Harlow. And I had been covering them for 3 days straight before this violence occurred. But I know that, and it was reported to the local sheriffs as well, that this group of COVID denialists had already gotten into several violent situations with some of the bystanders there. There weren't really any counter protests to these, but they were kind of getting into fights and getting into conflicts with locals that were just walking by or patrons of the restaurants that were involved. So
that's right.
This was day 3, and things got out of hand.
Vishal, if I recall, because I did cover only one of these, and I had Adam Kiefer, who's a Proud Boy, come across the street and accuse me of throwing stones, which was absolutely ridiculous and untrue. But they were blocking the entrance to the restaurant, so any patron that had reservations for that night had to go through this gauntlet of right-wing extremists to get into the restaurant. In the crowd, you would see several Capitol insurrectionists. I know the night you were there that this happened, we had Alberto Nunez, who is a Proud Boy, runs camera for Jess Weber, who is also a Capitol insurrectionist. He's well known now for taking one of the, or at least shooting video with one of the police officers' riot shields during the Capitol insurrection and talking about it. We had Brian McCowcow, who has been known as Bullhorn Brian, who's a local here. So just to give people an idea of what this is about as far as the group is concerned. So well, why don't we just play the video now and people can see what we're talking about, and then we'll talk about it.
Oh my God! Please! Let's go. Get him. We got him down.
Get in there. Get over there. Get his shoe. I got his shoe.
Turn away.
Dang, I can't get his shoe.
Back away. We got this. Hey, keep him down. Keep him down.
Watch out. Watch out. He'll get crazy.
He's trying to.
Arrest him.
Get down on your fucking ground.
Get on the ground. No.
Not attacking it.
He will.
Keep him down.
Keep him down.
Hey. Hey. Out here, Ryan.
Knock him out.
Get the fuck out of here. You cheap shot, bitch. Get the fuck out of here. Cheap shot. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah, you're all so fucking tough.
So tough. Which I got a shoe. It's someone threw a shoe. Watch out, Jason. Watch. Back up.
You're full of hate, dude. Where you from? Full of hate. Where you hate?
First Amendment right, not nuts.
We are trying to free people's minds. Put your mask on.
I got puking in the name of Jesus Christ.
You're full of hate. You're full of hate. You're full of fear. What are you afraid of?
I'm going in. I'm going in.
You're afraid of the truth. You're afraid of the truth, aren't you?
Back up.
Yup. The government doesn't like you, dude. The government doesn't like you. Get out of here. You're a fucking guinea pig. You're a fucking guinea pig. Go ahead. Go ahead, you motherfucker.
He should be in jail.
Come on, bitch.
Yeah, here we go. Jason's gonna. Jason.
You're scared. You're scared. What are you afraid of?
Oh, you're spitting.
What are you afraid of? What? What are you really afraid of? What are you scared of?
Someone knock him out, or else whoever's way will have to.
What are you really? I fucking live here, you fucking. Yeah. You want to check my fucking ID? You motherfucker! I love this country!
All right, so it looks like this crazy guy came in out of nowhere, tried to start knocking out everybody. Jason, he just came in here and just punch you?
No, he punched Nick. You're scared, dude. You're scared. He punched Nick. We took him down there.
Can we do it? Get out! Get out! Get out! Let's go! Let's go! Let's fight him to the death!
Just move him out! Just move him out! You're here! Come on! Just move him out! Get the fuck out! Just move him out! Hey, no swinging!
He's got no shoe, Alberto. One shoe. One.
Hey, you got anger, just swing at me, motherfucker!
Stop!
You fucking ain't! If you got anger!
Stop! What side are you on? Come on, buddy.
You know what?
He came in here and attacked everybody. He came.
Bullshit.
You're missing a shoe.
No, we don't fucking jump people. That's bullshit.
He did. He jumped everybody.
He jumped everybody.
He jumped everybody.
Who do you think you are?
He's lucky. You're lucky you're still walking, buddy. You're lucky.
You're going to prison tonight, motherfucker. Felony.
Oh, here's this dude.
Assault. You assaulted multiple people, you piece
Oh.
of shit. Who do you think you are? You because we want freedom, we're standing up.
Stand back. Stand back. We're still walking to the track here.
We have you on video.
Is there
We're going to
anyone else?
identify you. I'm going to put you on my website everywhere.
You guys are just assaulting random people now.
Yeah!
Come on, man!
Get up! Yeah, there's his face. Yeah! Oh!
Yeah!
He docks people. Yeah! Uh-oh. Just get him. What's up? Hey! Come on. Get out of here. Why are you defending him? Why are you defending him?
Go home! Take your go home! Go home!
Go! Oh, he took his hat. He took his hat. Back up.
Go back and get go home!
Go back.
Go back and get go home! This is love, dude!
All right.
Go home!
Unbelievable. Don't say anything about it. You assaulted like
He
5 or
needs to
6
be
people.
arrested. You have to be in jail, sir. We have you on video.
Go home! Go home!
No, he has to go to jail.
Go home! Go home!
Making sure you leave.
Turn the fuck around! Turn the fuck around! Go home!
Back up. You don't want him. He will hit the camera for sure.
you fucking terrorist. You're the terrorist. You're part of Antifa, right?
Get out of here.
You're going down, bro. You're going down. That's what he's talking to save you, bro. You're gonna get fucking fucked.
All right, guys. So if you're just tuning in, there's a car coming. I know, but he's.
Knock the fuck out.
All right, guys. That guy. Back up. He's got mace. He's got mace. See, this guy is getting up his energy.
I knew you took drugs. Yeah, you gotta be geeked up. You gotta be geeked the fuck up.
Knock him out.
Hey, you wanna take him?
No, you got. Yeah, but we don't need it all over the camera. It's all over the camera. Hey! Now, where's that mace? No. Back up, Alberto. Fuck! It's all over our lens. He just fucked up our lens. He fucked up our lens. Fuck the lens. I can't.
I got sprayed a little bit, but I didn't get any on my face.
That's why. Good.
Did you see that? That man literally came and attacked everybody that he saw, and then we chased him down.
This is Weber's Way. We're in action here. The guy in the, I don't know where he is. Back up. Let's go. He's done. I say, anyways, back up, bro. He's gonna. He wants.
That's why you're bleeding from the mouth, you little bitch! That's why you're bleeding from the
Hey,
mouth, you
ow,
little
not
bitch!
that lens.
You're bleeding from the mouth, sir! You're bleeding from the mouth! You gotta knock
Let's
the
get him.
fuck out!
Hey, let's get him. Get in there, guys. Is there mace on the lens there? Oh.
You ain't gonna do shit, pussy!
Oh,
you ain't
yeah.
gonna do shit! You gonna get knocked the fuck out again, you fucking pussy!
Hey, no, we don't want that.
Show, you won't run around.
It's spray. Oh no. He's got that spray. That spray's not gonna last long.
It's not gonna last long, pussy!
Get him! Get him!
Yeah, someone punched him. He's bleeding.
He's bleeding from the mouth right now. Someone just knocked his ass out. You want the other arm broken, sir? Why you want that?
Wow! Hey, it's getting crazy.
Oh my God.
All right. Looks like we're. What's it? It's okay. All right.
That's why they came to destroy.
Anyways, guys, it's just over. We're here at Harlow. That guy starting a fight. Another guy came in and just started punching out everybody, which was crazy. That guy shows up. I don't know his name. Shia Shababab or whatever. He, I don't know what happened. We got to go back to the footage. I think there was a scuffle that broke out, and then he got punched, and then he went down pretty quickly, and then it was chaos like crazy. He kept spraying his pepper spray, and he's pretty. I don't know. He was bleeding a little bit. He needs water. So, anyways, can we get water for him?
Why is the police not here? Where's that fucking asshole?
Where's?
Here, I have your phone. Yes.
So, anyways, so yeah, this guy, just random guy, just came in here and just started punching everyone, which was insane. Anyways, we're going to stop, reset. We got pepper sprayed all over our camera gear. Yeah, we do. It's all over. We're gonna have to.
Okay, so that is the entire sequence of events from a random passerby getting involved in a fight with these guys, mutual fray of some sort, to the point where you started filming from across the street. You obviously came around through the alley to get more video footage. Jess Weber notices you. Mike Anchetta notices you. For folks that don't know who these folks are, Jess Weber is the guy who's filming on the Weber's Way. He's the one that is encouraging the fighting, even though he complains. He says he's a journalist, and journalists should never, get involved with situations. But let's quote him. Let's fight him to the death. Get in there. Get his shoe. Arrest him. Get on the ground. Knock him out. If you don't do it, Weber's Way will get in there and do it. I mean, listen, this guy's obviously involved in the fighting. It's insane that he thinks this is journalism. But Mike Anchetta is the guy that's wearing the shirt that says the white shirt that says God. You can see him come around while you're, I don't know if you noticed him, you can tell me in a second, but you see him come around the side, comes around, and he hits you pretty fucking hard, pardon my French. So, you know, now Andy No's video starts with you fighting back. He completely edited that part out. And so he posted the video of this edited video on his Twitter and basically called you an Antifa terrorist and whatnot. And that's where we are today. But walk us through those moments and how you perceived it happening.
Yeah. So, you know, I arrived there, and as you could see, there was already a conflict. There was already a fight the moment I got there. And as that's literally the first shot of video and the only shot of video I got that day, which is pretty strange when you cover protests to only get one shot. And the shot ends pretty abruptly as they're advancing on me in the alley. And as you pointed out, Tina, multiple of them recognized me. They pointed me out. They started yelling my name. And all of a sudden, their crosshairs changed from this guy they were fighting to me for just holding a camera, as if there's some equivalent to that. Which is the whole idea here, saying that journalists that don't agree with them are as dangerous as some kind of violent force, saying that our camera is a weapon worthy of responding with violence. But as they're advancing on me in the alley, I sort of noticed Mike Anchetta walking to my left. But, you know, when there's like 15, 20 people advancing on you and yelling at you, it's a lot to take in at once. Also, I'm filming, I'm camera operating, I'm looking at my frame, I'm trying to, I know it sounds ridiculous now in retrospect, but, you know, I'm still trying to get a good shot. And the moment I realize he walks out of my frame, I know I'm probably in trouble. He immediately walks behind me, positions himself behind me, and shoulder checks me. And the moment he hits me, I turn around to look at him, and he starts punching me repeatedly. And you can see my POV angle,
you got
obviously.
Well, it looks like you got a couple of shots into your face. How much physical harm did that cause you?
Yeah, so I went to the Cedars-Sinai emergency room right after that. I received a concussion, a broken nose, and broken bones in both of my eye sockets, as well as my face.
Wow.
Yeah. It's worth noting Mike Anchetta is a trained MMA fighter. He's a professional. He's been in the industry.
Let's talk about him for a second, because his Instagram shows lots of violence on it. He apparently works as a bouncer here locally. I've seen 2 videos on his Instagram now. One of them is from a local bar here called behind a barbershop. It's a speakeasy where he followed 2 patrons out to the parking lot, threatening them and saying he was off duty. I saw another video where he did something similar, where he worked at a bar in Glendale called Mr. Furley's. So the guy is, you know, he likes violence. I don't think that that's an extreme statement there. So he's clearly the instigator here. Bring me up to speed with what happened when you reported this to local law enforcement. I believe it was the sheriff's department.
Yes. So West Hollywood is in the jurisdiction of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, the West Hollywood station. I immediately reported this crime to West Hollywood Sheriff's Station. And initially, you know, they took my statement. I included one video, the video from Weber, the wide angle that really shows everything. I turned over that video as evidence. They documented my physical injuries. I mean, my face was still completely swollen. And for a while, I heard nothing. Months went by, and they just gave me no update. And I was really starting to lose any faith that they were investigating this situation at all. So I had the phone number of the detective. His name is Detective David Cussiter. I called him a couple times. I was like, hey, detective, is there any update with the case? You need anything else from me? What's going on? After a couple months of dodging my calls, out of the blue, he finally kind of excitedly calls me back and goes, oh, you know what? We've been wanting to bring you into the station so we could talk to you more about identifying the individual that you identified as your attacker, Mike Anchetta, who obviously is wearing a mask. So they were interested in getting more concrete verification that this is the individual involved. And I was like, okay, fine. And they said, let's do a photo lineup, basically a lineup except with photos of mugshots. And they'd ask me to identify the person as the attacker. So I complied with this. I went to the West Hollywood Sheriff's Station, started off things pretty normal. They showed me 6 photos of random Hispanic men who looked nothing like Mike Enchada. And I told them,
Okay.
yeah, that's not him. None of these photos are him. And they said, okay. They asked me a couple more questions. They told me that it's difficult to do a photo lineup for someone when they don't have a criminal history. I told them that that's incorrect. Mike Enchada has a criminal history. I just
He
so happen to have
absolutely does.
all of his citations on standby. I handed it to the detective, and he said, "Oh, okay, I'll go run these." In the meantime, another detective came in and started asking me about other protests that had nothing to do with Cedars-Sinai. And then all of a sudden, Detective Custer said, "Hey, look, man, this is kind of a formality, but I'll try to make it quickly. But could you please stand up? We're placing you under arrest for battery." And they handcuffed me in the room where I was supposed to be identifying the guy who committed battery against me. And they arrested me and they put me in jail for about 5 or 6 hours without giving me any information. They told me the delay was because their fingerprint machine wasn't working. So for a while
I
I was
find
stuck
that
in
hard to
there.
believe.
Yeah, I was stuck in there for a while. I couldn't even. It took me a couple hours to even get a hold of my lawyer by phone. It was not great. And it was also just, for me, really frustrating because I went there for a purpose. I went there to try and help identify an individual who attacked me. And by the way, while I was in jail, and this is almost comical if it weren't so insane, Detective Custer returned, gave me a half-hearted apology for me being in jail, and then another detective came in and actually finished the photo lineup. And this time, one of the mugshots they showed me was Mike Enchada, and I tried to keep my obvious frustrations away because, in my opinion, they were kind of trying to get a reaction out of me. And I was like, no, I'm just going to do the thing I came here to do. And I very
Right.
calmly said, this is Mike Enchada. This is the person who punched me. I don't have any problem identifying him, even if I'm identifying him in a jail. So be it. And yeah, Detective Custer released me after a couple hours. I was cited and released with battery. Those charges were inevitably rejected by the district attorney, who just threw them out like it was a joke. I mean,
Was that the
obviously,
city attorney or the district attorney that
it
was
was the
looking at
district
that?
attorney for this
Okay.
case. Yeah, from the LAX office.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. I don't understand how this sheriff watched the entire sequence of Jess Weber's and came to this conclusion, because clearly you see Mike Enchada not only just checking you, throwing the first couple of punches. And then after that, to me, you were just defending yourself. I think that's pretty obvious. All right, let's bring Andy No's situation into this, because as Andy does when he produces his propaganda, he edited a video. I believe Mike Enchada also had a same, if not similar, edited video on his Instagram, which basically accused you of throwing the first punch and inciting violence.
Yes, and I'll point out this video is actually a fourth angle. It was filmed by Grayson Arnold, who is a Capitol rioter, as well as a neo-Nazi who has very public support for Adolf Hitler. That's the kind of individual that Andy No thought was useful video.
Wait, so I didn't even realize Grayson was there. So Grayson also filmed and published video of this event?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
You can see him in the montage. You see him briefly from my angle and Hyro's angle. He's visible.
Okay.
And he's posted his own edits. Sorry, he posted his own edits. So
I just want to explain who people are for people that are just being introduced to these folks. So Hyro is the one that was running the camera for right-wing views. So he did a little bit of a selfie there somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So now let's get to the Andy No. So Andy No posts this edited video, calls you what? Basically not a journalist, an Antifa violent extremist or some such.
Yeah, Antifa extremist, radical extremist. He's got all kinds of names for me, but essentially just terrorist.
How many times has he been posting this about you? I mean, it's been more than once, right?
A lot. Quite a few times, actually. Sometimes pretty innocuously, he'll just bring it up out of nowhere, and I'll just be looking at my phone, like chilling on my couch, and all of a sudden I've got like 100 notifications from angry Andy No fans telling me to kill myself, and I'm just like, did something happen? And I have Andy No blocked, and Andy No has me blocked, so I don't know when this stuff happened.
Listen, exactly. That doesn't stop Andy, as we know.
No.
He has me blocked and whatnot.
Exactly.
Let me ask you this: Why why do you think Andy is so angry with you, has such a big bone to pick with you, and it just keeps harboring on about this? What do you think, what's the root of that?
Well, Andy is someone who is a political operative rather than journalist.
I agree.
He uses his platform as a form of as a very efficient tool to be a provocateur. And to him, he despises anyone on the left. He despises anyone who is publicly against fascism. And
he despises anyone that doesn't agree with him. Let's be clear. I don't even think you have to be. I mean, he would call an LAPD officer an Antifa activist if this LAPD officer disagreed with him. I think that's I don't think that's a crazy statement.
Yeah, he doesn't have a very good relationship with the truth. So
no.
Whatever fits his narrative, whatever fits his goal is fair game. And
I agree.
Whatever physical harm and whatever threats come the way of his victims,
he doesn't care.
At best, he doesn't care. At most, he's happy about it.
Oh, I agree. I mean, listen, if any other journalist does what he does, they would not be having a job. Let's just be clear on that.
Well, he doesn't have a job at Quillette for a reason.
Right. Well, fair. Okay. So Andy, so now he's getting all of his followers riled up constantly. Now you were invited to speak on a panel at the Asian American Journalist Conference here in Los Angeles last month. Andy decided that shouldn't happen, and he began not only harassing you over this, but the president of the organization and other members that were on the panel. He wrote a piece about it in the Post Millennial.
He edited the piece. I believe someone else wrote it, but
okay. He edited it. Okay.
The whole article is built out of his Twitter thread, so most of it is his words.
Colin, let's pull that up. So, violent extremist Vishal Singh to speak on panel hosted by Asian American Journalists Association. Vishal Singh has also called for people to assault Latino videographer and host of TPUSA Frontlines for his video coverage of a public pride event in June. What?
Oh, boy.
What is that a reference to?
He's talking about Drew Hernandez. So Drew Hernandez, who is famous for going on the stand to defend Kyle Rittenhouse, a person he filmed murder two people. Drew Hernandez has made it his mission more recently to aid in the far-right obsession with transgender folks and the attempt to frame the entire transgender community as groomers or pedophiles. And during Pride in Los Angeles, Drew Hernandez was just literally following around small children, trying to film them near queer people so he could get clickbaity videos. And I just said that's not welcome behavior. And Andy, of course, interpreted that as, Vishal's trying to send the mob of Antifa after a journalist. And I'm just like, no, I'm just saying, like, don't do horrible, creepy shit. The irony, I mean, honestly, so many Republican accusations are just confessions. Like, I personally think that if you're trying to make your current moral panic and culture war about grooming children, maybe following around children and filming them without them or their parents' consent isn't the best way to go about that. That's just my opinion.
All right, so let's go to the article and pull up some of Andino's tweets so that people can see the edited version of the video. So the very first one there, it says, violent extremist Vishal Singh, a person with long hair, has been invited to speak on a panel at the Asian American Journalists Association. I'm a member of this group, and I'm shocked the organizers invited a battery arrestee who calls for violence against journalists. So he's cut the video removing the fact that Anchetta had snuck behind you and hit you twice already before this happened. What were you supposed to do? Not defend yourself and get hit again? I mean, the crowd around you was screaming, knock him out. He doxes people, knock him out. Let me go read some of these things. I wrote them down. You were going to go down, bro. You got knocked the fuck out, pussy. Screams that, I can't even read my own writing now. Whatever that one is. Let's get him. Get in there, guy. You're going to get knocked the fuck out again, pussy. So, I mean,
right after.
How is it Andy watches all that video because he had to have watched it in order to edit this clip out, right? How does he just ignore everything that came before then and do this and call himself a journalist?
Well, look, it's quite incredible. I mean, we all just watched the entire incident. That's a 10-minute video, and Andy No's clip is 3 seconds long. You know, like you have to be putting in your priority there is to hide context. Your priority there is to completely strip away information that would explain it. So much so that some of even Andy No's supporters have been like, is there a longer video? What's going on? Like, not even from a defending me perspective. They're just like, what is this? Like, we want to know more. And I've even seen some of Andy No's supporters go like, oh, fuck that guy. He's Antifa, but he didn't actually start the fight. There's longer video. So even some of his supporters were just like, yeah, we know it's a lie. We don't care, but we know it's a lie.
Yeah, so really awful. So, you know, keep scrolling down through this article. You're right. It's basically just him embedding his own tweets. All right, enough of that. We get the idea. So now I want to talk about the fact, as this is happening, right? We are now starting to see stickers with your face on them posted around Los Angeles. I know that they were posted around the convention center where the journalist conference was happening.
Yes.
Colin, I know we gave you some of those. If we want to share some of those right now so people can see them. I know that they went to your old neighborhood. They must have pulled an address off the internet and put stickers around there, but very threatening stickers.
Yes. There's a lot of stuff like this.
It looks like that was shot on the metro. I mean,
yeah, that from what I was told, that's at the North Hollywood stop on the metro. So what I came to learn, and these images were posted outside of my old apartment. What I found out is, now I came to a mutual agreement with the Asian American Journalists Association due to a massive amount of threats going their way from Andy No's fans that I wasn't going to come speak. By the way, we weren't even talking about politics. We were talking about freelance journalism. We were talking about tips and tricks for freelancers in the industry. It's not even about politics, but Andy No decided to make it about politics. Anyways, I had decided not to go. So I found out later through, the staff of the convention, as well as some press freedom folks reaching out to me and saying, hey, there's stickers with your name and calling you Antifa going up around the hotel. And it was such a severe concern that I know the event itself actually contacted LAPD about this and got increased security purely because of Andy No's campaign against them and against me, which led to clearly not just online harassment, but folks showing up in person, at least to put stickers. What else would have happened if I had showed up? We don't know.
Well, listen, that's a fair point you're making, because how many of the recent shootings have been done by Andy No followers? Let's go through the list. We have the guy in Denver, right? Lincoln MacLeod. Mm-hmm. We have obviously Portland, Benjamin Smith. And then we also have Ricky Schaefer that went and attacked the FBI in Cincinnati recently. All of these folks have been found to on social media to be supporting, liking, retweeting, responding to, Andy No's posts. So, and let me also say, Andy No has a Telegram account that, he puts even more extreme content on. So this is a guy that is 100% interested in radicalizing individuals. And let me say this, Andy No, I absolutely cannot wait for you to clip this up and put it on your Twitter feed. Go, because I know you're going to do it. But this is very, very dangerous, I think. The fact that, go ahead.
Andy No contributes to kind of this alt-right misinformation vortex that really is part of a radicalization machine for a lot of people out there. And it's not like Andy No's directing all these fans to go shoot places up, but he's constantly giving them reason. He doesn't have to. Right. He's constantly giving them reason to have a violent hatred. And he's constantly supplying a list of targets to point that rage to. And he's smart enough to know that there's always a potential of violence, especially when your audience is that large and is that angry. He knows, and he doesn't care.
And it's part of that cycle, right? The reason he has such a large audience is because he's engaging in what he's doing, and he knows it, right? So he keeps, going through that ratcheted up cycle each time around. So he knew he started making money off of doing this. He decided to go with it. It's his grift. I think now he's having some problems with the post-millennial. Obviously, a lot of advertisers are backing away from the site. They don't want to be associated with this kind of extremism. And they certainly don't necessarily want to be associated with somebody that's not engaging in any sort of veracity while calling themselves journalists. So anyway, I wanted to highlight this story because I think it's just one example of many. I know that there are others out there who have been, victims of this sort of, right-wing extremist harassment. And oftentimes, as we're seeing now, that can, progress into something more violent in real life.
Exactly. And that's kind of what's terrifying here to me, what this means for press freedoms and for First Amendment rights, because when you think about it, through threats of violence and through extortion, Andy Ngo has this ability to kind of force organizations and people to just, do what he wants. If he doesn't want a journalist to speak on a panel, he can make it enough of a safety hazard that no one can ignore it, and actions need to be taken. At the end of the day, that's more than 1,500 journalists attended that convention. Their safety was put at direct risk because of Andy Ngo. And Andy Ngo knows it.
Part of me wishes that they had stood up to him, though. I think kind of caving to his nonsense kind of emboldens him a little bit more.
There's definitely concern for that. I would agree.
Yeah. All right. So I, Vishal, am inviting you to stay on for the rest of the show. We're going to have some fun. I want to talk about TPUSA, which I know you're well informed on. I want to talk about FBI madness. And then I want to point out some crazy ass clips that came out this week. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is Turning Point USA. This is Charlie Kirk's organization. Let's start with this hysterical video of him speaking recently. They just had a conference in Arizona. So apparently, even though TPUSA is it's a college organization. This was set up to sort of herd college students into right wing and to save them from left wing liberalism, right? So it turns out Charlie Kirk never went to college. Let's play the clip.
Yeah, it's about indicting the college industry. I didn't go to college, and I think that, a lot of young people need to consider that path. Look, the college cartel has done such damage to our country. I believe the college cartel is no better than the Mexican drug cartel. And what they've done to our nation's youth, the bad ideas they've been spreading, the idea pathogens that have been infecting the inner core of our society.
How is it that he runs a college organization, but he never went to college? If this isn't the poster child for the Dunning-Kruger effect, I sincerely do not know what is.
Yeah, well, I see Turning Point USA as an anti-college organization, and it seems Charlie Kirk does as well, because, the Republican Party has been at war with education for a while, and it's an important psychological aspect of their culture warring that so much of it revolves around this anti-intellectualism, this belief that learning is bad, schools are bad, but us ideologues, we're good. Don't read the books, just listen to my podcast. It's a self-serving grift, but it's also really dangerous to democracy because you need an informed populace.
I agree it is. And here's the thing. I don't think it's bad to not go to college. There are many forms that education can take. Trade schools are as viable if that's what you want to do. So I don't think college is for everybody. I would never put down this idea that if you didn't go to college, you're an idiot. I don't think that's the case at all. But he sort of is pointing in that direction and saying that, I never went to college and look at me, but I'm going to do all these dumbass things. You can be like me. And he doesn't really understand how that comes off, so to speak.
Exactly. In my opinion. And without the privileges of someone like Charlie Kirk, not going to college is not going to get you anywhere. For a lot of low income, especially BIPOC communities, college is oftentimes a way out of a circumstance and a way to get your hands on these opportunities that have been gatekept away from you for a long time.
That's right.
So it's a really dangerous mentality to kind of convince people, oh, you can be the next Mark Zuckerberg. Oh, you can be the next, no. I think not everyone needs college. Everyone's educational.
Your point being that these guys have privilege that's been granted to them that is got nothing to do with college. And you're correct on that. So does Charlie Kirk. So
exactly.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on there. Let's go now because, my favorite right-wing nut is Marjorie Taylor Greene, obviously. So she was talking with Pastor Rob McCoy. Let me give a little bit of background on this individual for folks that do not know who he is. He has a church in Thousand Oaks, California, I believe actually Newberry Park, which is Ventura County, called Calvary Chapel. He had several run-ins with, law enforcement. during COVID because he refused to abide by COVID restraints. He's a big anti-vaxxer. He's also been part of a lot of, other things, obviously, Christian nationalism. He's involved with anti-trans rhetoric. If you watch any of his sermons online, they're very much political. None of it's really about God. It's about Christian fascism and, Donald Trump and whatnot. But he interviewed Marjorie Taylor Greene at TPUSA. So I have 2 clips from that. Let's start with the God is not a globalist, he's a nationalist one.
Different generation. And they believe in this idea of globalism, World Economic Forum, World Health Organization, and they've been told that America's bad. And I love what Dennis Prager says. America's faults are universal, but our successes are unique.
Yes.
And this is, of the 4% of the world's population, more patents, Nobel Peace Prize winners, more symphonies, more accumulation of wealth, because we've had freedom.
Yep.
And I think people have forgotten how great America is, and you don't have to be ashamed. God is not a globalist, he's a nationalist.
That's right.
God is not a globalist, he's a nationalist. I don't even know what that means. But it doesn't feel like Jesus Christ would say. Also, can we introduce this gentleman to something called per capita? I'm just going to throw that out there.
It sounds so mask off to me, like the Christian nationalism and Christian fascism, which is just a form of clerical fascism, which is very popular. I think it's one of the most pressing threats of like actual fascism taking root in the United States, because look, a lot of people think this problem is only in like middle America, but this pastor, like you said, he's
here in California.
Rob McCoy is from Southern California. He's in Thousand Oaks. And Newbury Park, as you know, Tina, has seen a big rise in a lot of anti-Semitism and even neo-Nazi activity with the banner drops and White Lives Matter stuff. And for someone from that community to go up and talk about, oh, God wasn't a globalist, he's a nationalist, like that is so dog whistly. I mean, at that point, it's barely a dog whistle in terms of.
No, yeah. So let's talk about that for a second. So folks that don't realize this, oftentimes when neo-Nazis say globalist, they're meaning Jewish. So this is a word that they're supplanting Jewish for. So when they say globalist, they're like, he's not a Jew, he's one of us, is basically what he's saying.
It's a very popular kind of, it's a wink wink kind of thing that a mainstream Republican or traditional conservative can say, but they're really just courting a white nationalist base with rhetoric
100%.
like that. And they know 100%. What they're doing. They're not talking about the world economy. They're talking about Jewish people.
That's right. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene was just at the Nick Fuentes conference a couple months ago too. Nick Fuentes is a neo-Nazi. He runs America First, which is exactly how it sounds. Groypers are his gang of followers. So 100% white supremacy. Let's go to the next clip where he gets, I don't know, teary-eyed.
To protect freedom for man to worship God. You are defending the borders of America. You're defending religious liberty. The most powerful branch of government, according to our founders, was the legislative branch. And as soon as they gave them the power of the purse strings and we get to elect them directly, they said those 16 words: Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof.
Right.
And it wasn't even eloquent. It was prohibitive. Don't you dare get in the way of man and God. And you do that. You protect that. And the folks out there need to know how grateful I am as a pastor for what you do on our behalf. You're precious. And I mean it, that fandom, I am just so thankful for you. You're precious.
So much.
And they need to know that. How do we support you?
Prayer, of course.
You have that from me and you got it from them.
Yes.
But we need you continually reelected. How do we do that?
MTGforamerica.com if anyone's willing to donate. I don't take money from lobbyists or PACs.
I know you don't.
Just regular people.
You're not owned by Big Pharma.
No, absolutely not. And I'm still under attack all the time. I'm still paying attorney fees from them trying to get my name off the ballot. We're always fighting. But MTGforamerica.com, and I'm just really, truly grateful.
You get death threats, but I love this. You're immortal until God's done with you, and He's not done with you.
No,
so just operate in courage and bless you for all you do. We'll pray for you, and we'll continue to support you. You have now had the privilege, and me, the greatest privilege, to meet somebody that I've been a fan of, and I got to meet in person, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Don't ever forget this. And someday, please God, may she be president of the United States. Lord bless you. Thank you.
Fandom.
You know, it's a cult mentality. It's Christian nationalism. It's clerical fascism. Like that kind of. It's a devotion. It's beyond politics. It's like a religious loyalty.
It is, and you know. What I find disturbing about this is they seem to take this idea of the country was set up on tolerance, right? And tolerance means that you accept everybody's religious beliefs, no matter if they're different from yours or what they are, right? These folks seem to not get that part. What they want to say is like, you're infringing on my rights if my religion isn't the law of the land. They really do want Christianity to be the law of the land. And it's really problematic. It's not how the country was set up whatsoever. You know, by making Christianity the law of the land, you are absolutely 100% infringing on other people's religious beliefs if they don't belong to your circle. That seems to be something they can't wrap their brains around, though.
I don't think they want to. Like, you know, they're constitutionalists until they want to stop America from being a secular country all of a sudden and completely go against the Constitution. Like, they only pivot back and forth, whether it's God, whether it's Constitution, whether it's their conservative values. They pivot back and forth to these things just as an excuse rather than actually building philosophies out of these ideas. And that's why why so much of the far right is so reactionary rather than actually coming up with, you know, real ideas that aren't about bullying and putting people down or forcing them to go your way.
Right, 100%. All right, I wanted to now pivot to, there's a Washington Post article that was out this week about Turning Point USA. Vance DeSantis rally puts highly unusual restrictions on the press. I think this is incredibly frightful and newsworthy. They are now basically promoting the idea of propaganda. Journalists must agree to give access to their footage to the event organizer, pro-Trump GOP youth group Turning Point Action, and explain how they intend to use it. So if you want to press pass, you have to agree to this. Journalists hoping to cover a Republican rally featuring Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Senate candidate J.D. Vance in Ohio will have to agree to give organizers access to any footage they take and could face questions about what it will be used for. This is among the controversial restrictions placed on journalists as a condition of receiving a press pass to cover Friday's event, which is being organized by Turning Point Action, a conservative nonprofit led by activist Charlie Kirk. The press policy also restricts journalists to specific events and parts of the venue and bars them from recording speakers who do not wish to be filmed. Turning Point Action has warned that violators could be kicked out of the event. These are highly unusual conditions, according to Monica Neoporte, the president and executive director of the Ohio News Media Association, which represents outlets across the state. In particular, Neoporte called out organizers' demand for access to journalist footage, something that many newsrooms would consider an attempt to meddle with coverage. I'm saying it absolutely is exactly like that. These guys only want certain things put out. Frightful. So this is where we're headed going into the 2024 presidential election. This is bad.
Yeah, that kind of closed off session isn't really journalism. That's propaganda by definition. If you're not allowing anything critical or anything that doesn't fit by this kind of pre-approved standard, then how are you going to get any actual truth about a situation if it's at all critical of the organization? I mean, even law enforcement agencies like LAPD, who are notorious for treating the press horribly, have had to acknowledge publicly that press passes, you know, they don't need to be issued by some kind of larger governing body. They can be from anywhere as long as you are doing the job of journalism, as long as you are there. That's what decides that. And what we're seeing now with these, you know, large right-wing outfits like Turning Point USA is they're trying to normalize the treatment that indie journalists have been facing for several years to a more mainstream journalist crowd, which is like, oh, if you don't follow our rules, we're going to kick you out. And, you know, that's not going to be something that's going to happen peacefully.
The First Amendment is under attack in the country and has been for a long time. In fact, the U.S. Freedom of the Press Foundation I think we're not even ranked in the top 10 for press freedom at this point in the United States, which I think is shocking for some people to hear. But we have been going to this point for a long time. I agree with you. It's propaganda. I don't think any newsroom should agree to this. So if my options are to be put under these circumstances and cover your event or not cover your event, my choice is going to be, I'm not going to cover your event.
Exactly.
Simple.
But what's unfortunately, what I believe is going to happen though, is that these events are going to be so newsworthy that these larger news stations are going to have to cover it in some way anyway. So if they don't send someone there and follow the rules, they're going to end up licensing footage from a stringer who's following those rules, from a freelancer who's following those rules.
All right. If I do sneak in there and I say I'm agreeing to your rules, I'm absolutely not going to agree to their rules. There's no way I would ever show them my footage. It wouldn't happen. And I dare them to steal my camera equipment. They probably would try.
It worries me that they're incentivizing freelancers to play their game because they have less wiggle room and less, negotiating power, especially in the journalism industry, which is not very good to the pocketbooks of journalists lately.
Not lately, but I also think they're sort of cherry picking the audience geared towards right-wing streamers, right? People like our friend Jess Weber or whatnot, folks, or Andy No, right? They are kind of sort of gearing the audience towards that. We're only going to have our guys in who we know we can trust to put out really good propaganda, sort of a thing. But this is very dangerous for democracy, in my opinion. All right, FBI madness. So is FBI the new recruitment center for Antifa, Vishal?
Oh man, that would be awesome. Can they start with reversing COINTELPRO Pro and I have a lot of questions if that would.
I have a lot of questions too. I want to start this segment by playing. Okay, so Matt Gaetz, for people that do not know who this Florida politician is, he is actually currently under investigation for trafficking young girls, among other things. He is a very right-wing guy. I mean, I can't imagine that there's anybody more right-wing than Matt Gaetz, but yet here we are, because it's 2020, 2022. He is being challenged in his primary from not the left, the right. So I want to play this video called The Informant by the guy that's challenging him. His name is Mark Lombardo.
When Donald Trump really endorses someone, he goes big. You've seen none of that for Lion Matt Gaetz. What does Trump know? Is Gaetz the informant? Gaetz hired Jeffrey Epstein's attorney. Another Epstein attorney approved the raid on Trump's house. Remember, Gaetz pressured Trump to give him a pardon, but Trump said no. Matt Gaetz puts himself first, ahead of Trump and ahead of you. Vote for a leader who will put America first. Vote for Marine Mark Lombardo.
I'm Mark Lombardo. I approve this message.
Well, if there's anything you can rely on fascism to do, it's eat itself. So I'm thankful for that.
This is just wild to me. Puts himself in front of Trump, asked for a pardon. I mean, go down the list. I mean, Matt Gaetz has been truly loyal to Donald Trump. There is no universe in which you can say that's not the case. What is this guy smoking?
Look, no one is immune from the target of conspiracy theories when it comes to the far right. Honestly, the goal here, and there is a goal here, there is intent here. It's about loyalty. It's about incentivizing loyalty, about de-incentivizing going your own way in any kind of way. They need a kind of fascist brand loyalty that if it's not Trump, it'll be DeSantis next, whatever it is. They need everyone to stay on script. And if you go even slightly one way or the other, that's to them not convenient, then they'll jump on you from your own base because they sense weakness.
I don't disagree with that, Vishal, but I don't see where Matt Gaetz has done that, is my point.
Well, he hasn't gone against them. I think the reason why you get something like this is because others on the right see him as a weak link. They see him as too vulnerable. That's that's all he's. His incompetence has made him a target.
His incompetence in the fact that he is literally under investigation for trafficking young girls. I mean, we can't.
Yeah, although I'll notice they don't bring that up.
They never bring that up. They never call him a pedophile or any of those things, which is kind of bizarre to me because they have no problem calling everybody else groomer at this point.
Yeah, because then they'd have to acknowledge all of the child sex abuse going on in the Republican Party, which they're never going to do. I mean, they won't even.
I mean,
they've created a fantasy of even Donald Trump not being like having a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. They've created their whole universe, or literally a whole art like cinematic universe, Marvel style, where Trump was secretly fighting Epstein this whole time. It's just like, how can you argue with these kinds of just?
I don't know. You can't, because they're just ignoring what's in front of them. Yeah, the fact that he brings up Epstein without, fully acknowledging that Trump hung out with Epstein on multiple occasions is just wild.
Yeah.
But yet here we are, because things continue to get more crazy.
Yes.
I wanted to talk. There's also an article in the Daily Beast this week that kind of caught my eye. Enraged anti-vaxxer arrested for vile FBI threats in wake of Trump raid. Again, because Antifa is now, or the FBI is now the recruitment headquarters for Antifa, apparently. Like, it's just wild. So on Friday, Adam Byes wrote, "Come and get me, you piece of shit feds." On Monday, he was in handcuffs. That's the second title there. All right. On Friday, a Pennsylvania anti-vaxxer enraged over the FBI's search of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort allegedly vowed to murder as many federal agents as possible before they got him. "Come and get me, you piece of shit feds," he wrote on social media. "I'm going to fucking slaughter you." On Monday, 46-year-old Adam Byes found himself in handcuffs instead. The self-described UX design leader, marketing ace, adventure photographer, and storyteller began posting violent threats in the days following the FBI search of former President Donald Trump's home in Florida on August 8th, 2022, according to a criminal complaint unsealed Monday in Pittsburgh federal court. "Every single piece of shit who works for the FBI in any capacity, from the director down to the janitor who cleans their fucking toilets, deserves to die." All right, so we get the point here. I don't think that this guy is alone. I think that this mentality is becoming the new norm. I also want to point out that I've been monitoring some of these Telegram chats, and they're now referring to the FBI as a Jewish-run organization as well. How is it that the right, these guys, these right-wing fascists, have long put up, the thin blue line, pro-cop, we love our cops, we love our law enforcement. For years, they've been saying this, and now all of a sudden, the switch is flipped because maybe perhaps their cult leader did something bad.
Well, we learned on January 6th that a lot of that thin blue line stuff was kind of performative and was more about, we love the thin blue line if it supports us. That is not an unconditional love. They have very strict guidelines. And if you are not a police officer or law enforcement official who wants to help with their fascist insurrection, whether it's in person or whether it's behind the scenes, then you're a target. And it's important to note that, like, all of these allegations coming from the far right about the FBI having some kind of sympathy for the left is completely unfounded, considering the fact that every director of the FBI in history has been Republican or Republican aligned. They've constantly done so much work to disrupt and destroy leftist organizing.
Exactly. I mean, there's a history of the FBI targeting left-wing activists. That is not a crazy statement. Yeah. Anybody that has dug deeply into the Hoover FBI, knows this. COINTELPRO is something that actually did happen. So yeah, it's really bizarre that this is the world we're living in, where we're seeing this happen. It reminds me of the WeSpa protests where Base Spartan was calling the LAPD Antifa.
Yeah.
I was
it switches on a dime for them. If they're not all of a sudden the main character, then you're the enemy.
They don't want to be held accountable. They just want everybody to agree with them, and if you don't agree with them, it's just madness.
Yeah. I mean, you don't even need to go back to the Hoover era to the FBI was doing a lot of monitoring on the Black Lives Matter movement. Like,
100%.
This is still going on, but I think the far right, they'll cheer that on when it happens. Be sure you could scroll back in time to 2020, and you'll see them cheering on the FBI. You'll see them appreciating all these exact same institutions that are now targeting them because they were. And the irony is that they can't even see how much leeway they've gotten to have let it to get to this point, to let it to get to the point where you can attack the Capitol.
Why, you know what, Vishal, that's an excellent point. That's exactly why it's gotten to this point, is because they've been given so much leeway. When have you ever seen any of the BLM leaders get online and make these kinds of threats? You don't see it. There's a reason you don't see it. If they did, they would be treated in a much more harsh way. I don't think that that's a crazy statement.
No, I mean, there's people that are completely peaceful activists that are treated worse than some of these Capitol rioters, So like, it doesn't really matter, and it's a complete fiction that they've created, because it's all about victimhood. It's all about perpetuating victimhood.
It absolutely is. You know what, Vishal? They could run somebody over, put the car in reverse, run over them again, and still find a way to make themselves the victim.
They do. And I'm sure that's, yeah.
And they do. All right. So now we're going to go to rapid fire mock. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. First up, I want to read the DOJ says in late filing that Peter Navarro told visiting FBI agents to get the fuck out of here. This sort of transitions from our last piece into this segment, just because this is so hilarious. All right. The defendant's continuing claims about his arrest are based on a misrepresentation of the facts and his posture toward the government at the time of the arrest. He claims that it was unprecedented and unusual that he was not permitted to self-report. Contrary to the defendant's claims, however, it is not law enforcement's normal practice to ask combative, unrepresented subjects to self-surrender. I'm sorry, I just find this absolutely amusing. At the time he was indicted and arrested, the defendant was not represented. And only a few days before, when the case agents attempted to interview him and serve him with a subpoena at his residence, the defendant at first refused to open the door. And then when he did, he told the agents to get the fuck out of here. The defendant also has an extensive history of seeking out news coverage. To avoid a media circus, therefore, the arresting agents encountered the defendant in a discreet location on the jet bridge at the airport, removed him to the tarmac, and then took him to be booked from there.
Like I said, they're still got the kid gloves on. They're still going so easy on them, and yet they still have to be like, "Oh my God, we're the targets, we're the victims, all because we tried to overthrow the democracy one time. It's not our fault." Who amongst us has not tried to overthrow the most powerful country on earth? Who amongst us has not?
Well, they want a hall pass. Again, in their mind, they weren't trying to overthrow democracy. In their upside down world, they were trying to preserve it because they believed the big lie. They believed that Trump won this election, even though there's no proof of this. So you can't really reason with these folks, right? But they're becoming so extreme. All right. So Dilbert, can we talk about Dilbert for a second?
Oh man. You know, people always tell me, like, what happened to the Dilbert guy? And I was like, wasn't he always crazy? I just think no one asked him about his politics until recently. Now everyone's like, oh, he was crazy. I mean,
somebody needs to take his Twitter away. So a couple of weeks ago, he was advocating, I guess his stepson passed away. And instead of like being in mourning and whatnot, he was, kind of saying, well, at least he didn't take some other people out. And maybe sometimes that's what just has to happen. There's no hope for these folks. Like, it was really disturbing, this thread. But that's not what I wanted to point out today. I wanted to point out this even more bizarre thread that you put his tweets on a Dilbert cartoon, which is absolutely hilarious.
It was someone else's suggestion, and I had a couple beers that night, and I was like, it'll take me 5 minutes.
All right, let's pull that up so people can read along with this, because it's pretty funny. All right, so these are Scott Adams' actual tweets, all of it, like 100%. So every male encounter is implied violence. It's the principle behind law enforcement, the military, and all social conduct. No one takes that off the table. Try to deal with the reality, please. No one supports dumb violence. Everyone supports smart violence.
Yeah, he actually said that. And then the one that I'm having the Dilbert character say is someone who disagreed with him, just like being like, wait, what?
Yeah. Every male encounter is implied violence. Is that really true? Like, who says that with a straight face?
Yeah.
So Dilbert's the other guy, and Scott Adams is the boss.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, I don't even like my dad all that much, but I can assure you there's not an implication of violence every time I encounter him. Not on my part, anyway. I suppose he would live in a constant state of resisting the urge to punch me.
And then
followed by, you read the last one.
Yeah, the follow-up from Dilbert's creator, Scott Adams, is, oh, there is. Stick your fingers in his ass without permission and see how far it goes. To which the internet responded, what?
Exactly.
What? Where did you, what?
Who says this shit with a straight face? Yeah, the guy is completely unhinged. I'm saying that publicly. I remember back during the primary, he actually claimed on Twitter that, and this was an exchange that I personally had with him. This is the first time I ever came across him. He basically said that he was to the left of Bernie Sanders. I was like,
oh man,
I'm like, dude, what? You're
those
so far
rigid,
left.
those
You
rigid
tripped into the
socialist
alt-right.
politics of the Dilbert comics. Oh.
I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. Like he's so far left, he tripped into the alt-right apparently. Anyway, totally crazy stuff. All right, next up we have another favorite of mine, Lauren Boebert.
Oh boy.
The People's House in Washington, D.C. It's Pelosi's house.
Okay, so this is, I'm going to get to some of this stuff in here, which is pretty cool. But I want to ask you a personal question that was not planned.
Dun, dun, dun.
Are we really experiencing a nation shift towards power from Switzerland and from the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab? And are we really...
Wait, are we at the Blaze?
Yeah.
Are we at the Blaze? Is that what's happening here?
Yes, we were at Blaze TV. I want to know this, though. Like, people, a sitting member of Congress, I feel like genuinely, and this is Glenn Beck has a similar position, is that what was a conspiracy 2 years ago, right? Oh, you're the, oh, this is the Alex Jones. This is you're out there, you're talking about this. But now it's like, hey, we have our leaders attending these summits.
Yes.
We have people using phrases from the Great Reset, like the Build Back Better agenda.
Exactly.
And we are talking, our leaders talk about this new liberal world order, and they use the phrase, the Great Reset. And then they were told, nope, that's a conspiracy. And you go, well, look, okay, call it whatever you want. A cataclysmic green energy, high inflation change. We'll rename it. We won't call it the Great Reset. Is this really happening in our country, that leaders are pushing for things to radically transform our country from what the founders intended? Like, is this really happening at a congressional or at a government level, or am I a conspiracy theorist?
I mean, I think what you're seeing with the WEF, the
WEFies.
I think that's the most truth that you're going to get. They sit right there on the stage and tell you exactly what their plan is. You look at the legislation, all of it is Green New Deal nonsense. All of it is modern monetary theory. We just print more money. We just get farther into debt. It doesn't really matter. Just keep on spending. That is all taking place. But no, if I were to go in a committee room and start talking about liberal world order, they'd say, oh, you're crazy. There is a conspiracy theory. Go get your tinfoil hat, Lauren.
I hate to break it to the two of them, but yes, you are absolutely engaging in conspiracy theory.
I mean, they're not just engaging it, they're almost celebrating how much they're acknowledging it. They're acknowledging that we were seen as the fringe crazy, and look at all the ground we've covered. Look at our leaders in these positions of power that are forcing these conspiracy theories ideas into the mainstream, not because of the veracity of the idea through evidence, but just because we are deafening the audiences around the country with this garbage, just flooding the zone with bullshit.
I mean, I was surprised that she brought up MMT. Like, I'm surprised she's even heard of MMT, and she gets the debt part doesn't matter, correct, but she doesn't seem to understand the reasons why that's the case, which is kind of a strange position to take if you are against the plutonomy, right? This is somebody that's saying, I'm a populist, I'm against the wealthy elites, I don't want to empower the wealthy elites, yet I'm going to find a problem with MMT, which is really an economic system that takes the power away from the wealthy elites. She doesn't seem to understand that part. Also, climate change. We should do something about climate change. It's a real thing. This is not some made up thing that's happening to us. It's something that is happening to us. And if we don't do something about it, the planet is going to die. Yet these guys are treating the Green New Deal as this my hair's on fire. No, your hair's not on fire. The planet is.
Yeah. Well, so much of right-wing populism in the United States is kind of built around this kind of ideology that Tucker Carlson has put out there, which is that fighting any kind of pro-worker legislation is how to protect the worker, destroy your own interests, and then all of a sudden you have a chance to be the elite like me. That's the vision that they're selling. They're not selling a vision of equality. They're selling a let's get ours, they won't get theirs, without telling them that 90% of them aren't going to end up in the boat either.
Right. And of course, undergirding all of this is, the Jewish conspiracy theory about banksters, weaved throughout all of their conspiracies. That's the bad guy.
It's always there, whether it's QAnon, whether it's Soros, it's always there.
It's always there without inevitability. With inevitability?
Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to end our show with this because it just slays me. Brandon Strika, who is the guy that started the Walk Away movement. All right. So if people do not know what the Walk Away movement is, it was this grift about like, leave the Democratic Party, come join Trumpville because we're going to take care of all of the things that are wrong with the Democratic Party, which is nonsense. So this guy sort of brands himself as, I'm an ex-Democrat, and I saw the light kind of a thing. So recently at shoot, what conference was this?
It was it the TPUSA one?
No, the other one, CPAC. All right, so this was at CPAC. So let's pull up the Tess Owen thread on CPAC. So Tess Owen covers right-wing extremism for Vice News, and she filmed this crazy video of Brandon in this jail room. He's sitting in this jail room, and they're playing audio of January 6 arrestees, which they're putting up as martyrs. And he starts crying, and people are throwing money at him. Let's play this video.
Awesome. Great job. Gotta go, keep the faith, Brandon. What they did to you is criminal. Thank you for sharing.
So that's the first. You can't really hear the J6 stuff, but in the background, they have this audio playing. So then in the next sequence, Marjorie Taylor Greene shows up and gets in the cage with him. Wait, Colin, did you get that video too?
I'm trying to film the person behind you.
Do you care about freedom? Back up,
I'm
please.
trying to film the person behind you.
Back up, please. Back up. Back up. Back up, please. Let's go, girl.
God bless you, Marjorie. In Jesus' holy name. Jesus, we trust in you. Jesus, we trust in you. And ask for strength upon Brandon. Send Holy Spirit upon him and strength.
All right. Yeah. So then they go on to pray, so again, here we have, CPAC that is becoming ever more extremist by each session. They have 4 sessions a year, putting up these guys as martyrs, of course. Then their queen of the moment, Marjorie Taylor Greene, shows up, and then they all start praying. This to me perfectly encapsulates where the Republican Party is right now.
It really does. I mean, it is a fake prison that they created themselves to incur a sense of victimhood while people throw money at them and Christian nationalists pray and some QAnon senator just like goes full actor and makes a whole scene. I mean, that really is everything that the mainstream Republican Party is. Yeah, fake tears.
The tears were great. I mean,
it was amazing.
They needed to give him one of those. What are those capsules that they use for actors?
Oh yeah,
right. Break them and it causes you to tear up. They should have given him one of those.
Yeah. Oh man.
All right. So that is our show for today. I wanted to thank everybody for joining us. I wanted to thank Vishal Singh for coming on the show and talking about what happened to him and what he's still experiencing, because I think it's important to recognize that there are very much real consequences for all of these online bullying events. And join us next week, where I'm actually going to be talking with Eric LeVay from the Daily Dot about some original reporting that he's done about the constitutional sheriffs. And then I will also be walking you guys through more details of the ghost gun story that we didn't make it into my Daily Dot piece, but some other stuff that's going on. All right, so see you guys later.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in to Status Coup's daily live stream Monday through Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time and Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern Time.